Well, my history of the association, of course, goes back to the first meeting where the CAV was founded. I think where it began was with somebody called Nettie Jenkins, who's not really very much in the records, I imagine, because she would have been a member, possibly. But career development was not very commonly accepted in the schooling system. The concept of career guidance in the private schools was very common, but Donald Super's theories of career development were, well, yes, I'd say unknown, basically. And the Deputy Director of Secondary Education in Victoria, a man called Jack Ford, went to England in the early 70s on a study tour, and he was very taken with the way in which secondary schools in England were using the theories of career development as a curriculum background to aspects of the secondary schooling, and that it was embedded in the curriculum and not something that was added on an individual basis. And then developing that concept, Jack, was in many ways before his time, and you would never have imagined it because he looked a highly conservative person, and he was very brusque. But so he and Nettie had the idea that they would run a conference in Victoria for school teachers who were involved in offering career advice in schools. So I think that something over 100 participants came to a conference, which must have been about 2 years before the association was formed. I'm not sure when that conference was precisely. And as a result of, no, that must have been just the year before. And then the following year, he persuaded the financial people to to finance an experimental program of 11 careers teachers. Often wondered about the 11. I think it must have been that there were originally 12 and somebody pulled out. But anyway, and Nettie chose Betty Levy to be the person to teach to train these people. The way in which we were offered the jobs was quite interesting. They chose people who'd been at this initial conference and they thought would be interested, and a letter of offer was made to the school where they were located, and I personally experienced it this way. At lunchtime one Friday afternoon, someone said that the principal wanted to see me in his office at lunchtime. So I went to see him, and Jack said to me, "Here's an offer. They want you to become a careers teacher full-time next year." And I said, since I had no time allocated at that stage at all, this seemed to be very odd. And he said, "You'll be relieved from your other teaching duties except for one class, and you have to promise to do the training." I said, "Well, I'd like to think about that." Well, he said, "I'll give you until 4 o'clock and then I have to answer it." Now, that was the 11. Then Betty had us for, I think, a week, 3 times in the year. So the training was not really that extensive, about 3 weeks. And then that group was extended the following year, and then it became a practice to have a careers teacher in a school. Now, within about less than a year, I would say, Betty perceived that there were going to be considerable problems in actually getting schools to agree to the conditions of the career teacher appointments. And that is really the origins of the CAV, to have a body that was outside the jurisdiction of the education department.